TG Geeks, episode 291, September 14th, 2020. If you're a writer, are you a pantser or a plotter? Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror genre. You name it, we talk about it. I am Keith Lane, and we're coming to you from, I am so tired, Phoenix, Arizona, but it was cooler the last couple of days.
Yes, and for a moment there, I wasn't sure if I was listening to Masterpiece Theater or NPR.
I was going for a combination of both.
I thought
a bit of both.
I figured you were going for a bit of both. And I'm Ben Raggington, coming to you from a place that's not quite so hellish anymore, but oh my God, you wouldn't know from the smoke here in Phoenix, Arizona.
Exactly. We had the heat. Now we got the smoke.
Now we got the smoke. Yeah.
Well, let's get on with this.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, in this episode,
this is special.
This is a special episode. We have three writers with us for a writers' round table. So we'll kind of introduce those authors whenever we get to the interview portion. Have our birthday shout-outs, a featured podcast. We have a feedback this week, and we actually have voicemail. Yay! And then we got some shout outs, and we have a couple of things that we might talk about in our second segment. Should we have some time, then our weekly recap and our regular shout outs. So come along for the wildest ride in the potosphere.
Did you just say potosphere?
And this time we welcome to our show, and we have a real treat for you. We have three different authors that we are going to talk to today. We're going to talk about pantsing versus plotting, and we're going to let one of them introduce that.
Yeah, and that's nowhere near as salacious as it sounds.
Exactly. So we have the illustrious Katie Edwards that everybody that has listened to our show for any length of time knows, the author of the Tarot Sequence. And then we have two new authors. So we have David R. Slayton, author, and we have Gregory Ashe, who's
they're
an
new
author.
To the show.
They're new to the show, yeah. So new to our show, but not necessarily new to us or new to writing or new to anything for that matter. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Nice to be back.
So, who wants to take a stab at explaining what pantsing versus plotting is?
This is Katie. I'm happy to take a shot at it. For writers who get together for any length of time, it's one of those subjects that always comes up. It's how do you write? An outliner, someone who really kind of relies on a written outline, is someone who we call a plotter, versus someone who, feeling constrained by an outline, prefers just to sit in front of their computer and let the words flow out of their fingers, and we call those a pantser. A pantser versus a plotter.
And you happen to fall into the extreme plotter category, right?
Obsessively so. I am an obsessive plotter.
Yeah, but we've had conversations in the past
where it changes.
Yeah, where all of a sudden, next thing you know,
my God,
the words of brand come flying out of your fingers, and now you've just created a situation that you never saw coming, and now you're like, oh well, blast it! Now how do I get out of this one? Because I need to get back to my notes.
Yeah. So, David, which one are you? Are you a pantser or a plotter or a both?
Well, I go both ways. I am what I affectionately call a tweener, meaning that I plot out the big plot points. So I usually have the 5 big scenes of the novel, the beginning, the end, the big turning points. and then I will pants my way between them. So I usually start with an outline of 5 or 6 scenes that are critical to making the book work, and then I kind of just feel my way to connect those dots. Now that I have a contract and I have sequels I have to deliver by a certain time, I am trying to learn Katie's ways and become more of a plotter because that way I can write faster. And if you want to write quicker, a plot and more of an outline and ahead of time can definitely assist with that.
So I was going to say, so it sounds like you're bi. You write both ways.
Yeah, very much so. While I myself am gay, I do write in that manner. I basically... Did you ever see the movie Proof? There's this really amazing moment about mathematics where Gwyneth Paltrow's character talks about how she can see the dots, and some of the dots are really far away and some are closer, and sometimes it's a struggle to connect the dots. So there's a lot of what I affectionately call the staring at the wall phase, where I basically have to sit there and figure out, okay, how do I get to the next dot? How do I pants my way to that?
Right. So, Greg, what about you?
It really depends on the project for me. I would agree with David that I certainly have to plot some of my mysteries very carefully because, mysteries are all about controlling the release of information. But, some of my paranormal and fantasy books, I've completely pantsed. Some have been hybrids. So I really feel like each project kind of demands its own approach.
Right.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. So I do have a question for David, since you're trying to learn the Katie Edwards method. Are you proficient in Excel?
Oh dear, that's a subject.
I am. So during my day job and the more lucrative part of my life, I work in software consulting, and I'm very familiar with Excel.
Uh-huh.
I use a method called StoryGrid, which requires an Excel spreadsheet that maps out every scene, maps out the word count. It also solves one of the biggest headaches in being an author, which is writing a synopsis, because you write a 1-sentence summary for each scene, and at the end you compile that, and boom, you have your synopsis. So,
I've never heard of anybody using a spreadsheet for that. That's fascinating.
That's fascinating. I also work in software implementation and consulting for my day job. Of course, we've made $12 on this endeavor of the Two Gay Geeks over 6 years.
Yeah.
So we have to support ourselves somehow.
And I work in health insurance, and I have designed numerous Excel spreadsheet tools to help price the manual payment of claims. And everything for me is always about data. I've never heard of Excel being used in this particular manner before. So when Mr. Edwards mentioned that he had worked with a spreadsheet, I was just completely stunned. I had no idea such a thing was even feasible.
It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I cannot imagine writing especially writing a series, and not just writing a series, but knowing exactly that I have 9 novels, 9 stories I want to tell, and knowing where I start and where I end. If I didn't have some sort of spreadsheet to take my notes and kind of sequester them off into the individual storylines, I just can't imagine even getting past the starting point of a story.
You realize that as soon as once you get the 9th book out and everything, you're a huge, massive success. You need to share screenshots of your spreadsheet so that other people can see how it is that what's the method to the madness. Because
I do have everything in a total spreadsheet, and it's got it so big that it is slowing down my computer. That's not even a joke. Like it slows down the entire computer. So I've got
your CPU is grinding to a halt.
Some of your notes, in quotes, air quotes, flashing neon colors, have more words than most novels do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say that, it's very possible, that by the time, any of you, if you're working with an Excel spreadsheet, by the time you actually get your product out, it could be that your book is a Reader's Digest version of what it is that you had in your spreadsheet in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, my second book was The Hangman. I'm working on the 3rd one right now. And so each novel pretty much will come to about 100,000 words when all is said and done. And I haven't started a novel with an outline less than 45,000 words. So that's basically half the size of the novel is just my sort of, guideposts.
Wow, that's amazing. So you have it pretty much already written, or at least the ideas and where things can go, all the many plot points, I suppose, that could possibly happen. So, how did you learn to do this? And anybody can field this question. How did you get started in writing, and then when did you discover, I need to have some kind of structure, or, I need to just feel free to do that? I'm kind of looking at where are you?
Well, I think what is the evolution of the writing process?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a long answer.
Then you
well,
go
that
first.
was a long question too.
Well, so then you get to go first.
All right, I have been voluntold. So for me, I began writing epic fantasies, which can be sprawling. And my first book, which is a trunked brick of 200,000 words that nobody was going to buy as a debut. Yeah, exactly. Which is just a mess. And every once in a while, I'll pull it out and look at a page and just cringe. But I learned that at the time I was just pantsing entirely, and there was no structure at all. And I wanted to somehow go from that to being somebody who would be published traditionally in bookstores. So I began going to writing conferences. I began learning methods, things like Save the Cat. And so I started out as a full-on pantser with no structure. And I'm becoming more and more of a plotter over time, like I said earlier, for speed. But I've evolved to where I want the story to be as satisfying as possible to a reader. And to meet that end, you need the right amount of words. One reason the story grid method works so well for me is I can see the word count chapter by chapter, scene by scene, and that can help me understand pacing better. Where do I need to maybe slow it down? Where do I need to speed it up? It gives me a better idea of the book's rhythm, the tug and pull of the flow, so that the reader isn't bored or isn't rushed. Sometimes I write too quickly. I just want to get to the next exciting thing, and I'm like learning to slow down and be in the moment more.
Cool.
So it sounds like not just because obviously you're working on the outline. You're trying to be a real plotter, but it sounds like even though working within the constraints of the plotting, it sounds like it's actually giving you a better structure for the pantsing.
Yes, I run a lot of Dungeons and Dragons games. I have for about 20 years. And one of the things I've learned is that the game will often go where the players want it to go. So if you take that process and apply it to writing, it's where the characters want to go. So what I've learned is, they're going to take you in a surprising direction, right? They're going to open their mouth, like you said. Something's going to pop out and surprise you. You might have a little bit of a side trip or a little bit of a side story. But I still need to reach that next dot. I still need to reach the end of the book. Certain things have to happen. This person has to die. This person has to win. This secret has to be exposed. So using that story grid method of tracking in a spreadsheet each chapter, each scene, and then I also track the emotional state at the beginning and the end of each scene for the main character, whoever is in the point of view. I tend to write POV. White Trash Warlock is a double POV. And then that allows me to go through and just feel my way between those big dots. But if you look at the spreadsheet when I first start, there are 5 rows, one for each of those big moments that must happen.
Interesting. So I have to throw the plug in. You said the operative word, Dungeons and Dragons.
Keith is about to explain to you that he and I are both very old farts here.
We're old. I had a original printing of the first 3 books.
Oh, cool.
When they came out. I'm that old. Now, I was 15, but,
That's awesome.
But, and then I lost them in a move somewhere, and I'm just forever. But I loved Dungeons and Dragons. And, of course, the dungeon master that I was familiar with was an engineering student, a severely anal retentive engineering student at Oklahoma State. So his dungeons we're kind of sitting there around the coffee table, and he's over at the another table, and we're discussing things over here, and he's rolling away, and then everybody looks up and says, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm seeing I'm taking into consideration your actions and not paying attention, and something has just popped up. He was that kind. You just walk down the hall or a corridor, and there you are.
It's interesting you should bring up the Dungeons and Dragons, because I just realized now that we've got two of our authors so far are serious gamers on some level, and I'm wondering if our third author is the same way. Are you? Because if so, that might also give us a bit of a glimpse into the mind of the writing. Is that am I off here?
Am I the third one? Is that me?
That's you.
Yeah, I love Dungeons and Dragons, love video games. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I guess that kind of influences and the writing that you do. Obviously, David, you were saying about White Trash Warlock. Obviously, well, that we know where that's kind of going. We know where the tarot sequence is going. So, Greg, what are your books about? How does Dungeons and Dragons inform your writing?
That's interesting. So I started off, I think, I wrote a lot of epic fantasy, and for a while I had them self-published, and I've taken them all down at this point. So I have a few kind of paranormal mystery, kind of urban fantasy style books that are still out there. I think that's where that influence shows up. But certainly, I mean, like David and KD, yeah, I started writing epic fantasy because I played Dungeons and Dragons. I read epic fantasy. Like, that was my one true love for a long time. And I shifted. I write a lot more mystery at this point, but there's still a fair number. Like my book that released today is a paranormal mystery. So
right. So I would say then your mystery was kind of an outgrowth of writing that epic fantasy, because obviously you have to take some clues from the Dungeons and Dragons and how that all works together.
Yeah. The other thing that I was just wondering right now is
the mystery part. And,
and
how do things happen?
Does that also affect your pacing? I mean, because you said you'd written some epic fantasy, and now you're doing mystery. And we've heard, like David was mentioning, that certain beats have to be met at a certain time. When you are doing your plotting, does that alter the certain points that you have to hit if you're going from one type of genre to another?
Yeah, I think to some extent it does. Like, certainly, like, each genre, as you said, each genre has its own beats that readers will expect you to hit. And I think that it's important to know those for the genre you're working in. Absolutely. I think genre fiction as a whole does tend to rely on relatively similar structures. Like, the 3-act structure has infiltrated so much, or if you want to call it the 7-point structure or the 4-act structure, they're all pretty similar. I'm probably like incurring the wrath of like the devotees of a certain structure, but I feel like they're all relatively similar, and they've all come to infiltrate genre fiction regardless of the genre. But then once you kind of come down from that more abstract level, yes, absolutely, you have to learn those beats that readers are going to expect, because that's why they're reading the genre. They want to hit that beat. They want to have that emotional experience.
Right. So
is it so? Okay. Yeah, Keith's having some serious issues with his. The soundboard is just being all kinds of goofy. So, Mr. Edwards, now, as of this point, you've been doing some kind of, it's been an urban fantasy.
Yes.
When I know that you've been doing a lot of workshops prior to your professional debut, shall we say?
Yes.
But when you were trying to evolve the method of your writing. The outline bit. I mean, for you, how did that exactly come about? Deciding that, okay, I need to set up my notes and my spreadsheet in this particular manner. And how did you figure out your rhythm?
Well, I have a really easy answer for that one. The reason I decided ultimately to become a detailed outliner is because I hate rewrites. There is nothing I hate more than rewriting a scene, let alone like a chapter or a couple of chapters. And before I started writing the tarot sequence, I practiced on 3 novels. I did a young adult, I did a gay mystery, and I did a sort of a contemporary coming of age story. And in only 2 of those were pantsers, essentially. I knew the big points of the story, but I just sat in front of the computer and let it go out. And afterwards, I realized it was just not marketable. That wasn't my skill, because I found that I would have ideas later in the novel, then I would have to go back and rewrite. And whereas, like, looking at The Last Son, I would say the entire novel probably took me about 3 months to write. But there was one sequence at the end of the novel where there was a siege going on around a mansion, and it's a two-chapter arc. And I pantsed that. I just kind of on the spot decided I'm just going to let it flow and see what happens. And afterwards I realized it was so weak compared to the rest of the novel that it took me 6 months to find the motivation to rewrite just 2 chapters.
Ooh, wow.
No kidding.
The cost of me having to go back and redo something, I've learned that I'm just not the type of writer that can do that willingly.
So what was the little post-apocalyptic short story that I loved that was in the anthology?
Oh, yeah. That was because one of the things you talked about, what kind of levels you up as a writer. And for me, being a member of a writing group and finding the right writing group, the perfect writing group, was the best thing that ever happened to me in my entire life as a writer. It's the one thing I credit for really bringing me up, if not one level, multiple levels. And we got together at one point and worked to create a shared world anthology, post-apocalyptic. And each of us, we as a group, we created the world, and then each of us had a story within the world. And we self-published it on Amazon, just to learn how to self-publish, how to put something together, and also how to work as a team. It's kind of fun.
I loved that story. It was very touching. We're kind of running up against the line.
You're running up against the red line here. And I'm sorry about that, but
2 questions for each person. What would you recommend for a new writer? And number 2, where can you be found on social media? Keith, go first.
Sure. Best thing for a new writer: join a writing group. Join a writing group, join a writing group, join a writing group. And don't be afraid to try different ones if it's not a good fit the first time around.
Please, don't mince words.
Yes. And I am most active on Twitter at KDEdwards_NC, and my website is kd-edwards.com.
And Greg?
Yeah, I would say try everything. Like, don't limit yourself to thinking you're a pantser or a plotter. Try different points of view. Try different genres, even genres you might not like. Try different length books. Try different voices. Copy pages out of authors that you like. I mean, I really think that you're not going to be... Everything is unique to each writer, so you have to figure out what's going to work for you by trying a lot of things. Best place to reach me is probably Facebook. I'm on there as Gregory Ashe. I do have a Twitter account, Techne Macre, or I have a website, gregoryashe.com.
Cool. Very, very cool. And David?
Those were both great pieces of advice. I would echo them. Something else I always say when I teach workshops at conferences, all writing advice is subjective. When you get out into the world and you start meeting other authors, aspiring writers, you're going to hear a lot of advice. Your mileage will vary. There are no absolutes. While there are definite rules, consider them more like guidelines.
Exactly.
Be careful of anyone who tells you this is the way, this is the only way, because they're wrong.
I have spoken.
Yeah. And then to find me, just Google David R. Slayton, Slayton. You'll find me on Twitter, Instagram, social media. I'm on Facebook. I always love connecting with people. I do have a website. It's undergoing construction, but it's up and running now, and we'll have a prettier one in about a month.
Cool. This has been really absolutely fascinating. So thank you all for joining us on our show this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Patricia Chica, director, producer, and here you are listening to my favorite podcast, The Two Gay Geeks. Oh, yeah.
Well, to say that was fascinating is an understatement.
It was
very interesting.
It was very interesting. And all three of them are just delightful to talk with. And, you know, we talked to Gregory Ashe, or we ran his interview a couple weeks ago. And I liked it because he laughed at my jokes.
Yeah, he got your jokes. Well, because you have a new audience.
A new audience, yeah. I had
it's not just me now.
Not just you, yeah. And I tried one of my old ones out on you last night, and you said, I've heard that one before.
Well, yeah, are you kidding? I gave the punchline along with you.
Anyway, we got some birthdays here, and here's a few selected birthdays for September 14th through September 20th, 2020. September 14th, Walter Koenig, actor, best known as Chekhov on Star Trek
Depends
series.
on which generation.
I'm
talking generation of fandom.
Exactly.
For us, it would be Chekhov.
Chekhov.
Mostly,
as well as his role in Babylon 5 as Bester.
Alfred Bester, the Psy-Cop.
Yep. And did you know that he was pre-med and then transferred to UCLA and got a degree in psychology?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was fascinating. Interesting. And then we have Luigi Cherubini. He was a composer, contemporary of Beethoven. He wrote opera and a lot of sacred music. And Beethoven considered him the greatest of his contemporaries. So, wow.
For Beethoven to say that, that's a lot.
Exactly. He didn't give anybody praise. He hated everybody. He literally hated everybody. All right, then September 15th, Agatha Christie, writer of crime mysteries, Miss Marple and Hercule Poirot, being two of her best-known characters.
Oh, yeah, because she wrote series of stories with those two.
Series of stories. And then we have Jessie Norman, opera singer, started her career out abroad. She did not make her operatic debut in the U.S. until 1982.
No!
Yes.
Really? Wow.
Unbelievable. And after that, she was a staple of the American opera scene.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, just constantly.
And the fans adored her.
Chicago and every place.
She was loved everywhere she performed in the U.S.
Yep. And her performances of Aida and as the diva in Ariadne of Naxos are two stellar roles.
The best.
Standout roles. And the Jessie Norman School for the Arts was founded in 2014 in her hometown of Augusta, Georgia. It's a tuition-free program for economically disadvantaged students.
Wow, wonderful.
It's amazing. I think she died in 2016.
It was very recent,
yeah. It's recent. September 16th, Mike Mignola, comic book artist, creator of Hellboy. He worked with Brian Augustine, a good friend of ours, on Gotham by Gaslight, and a concept artist on Pixar's Brave. Of course, Brian tells the story about Mignola was on his way down the hall saying goodbye to people because he was going off to someplace else.
Leaving, yeah.
And they said, "Hey, come here. We
want
to show you something."
Yeah.
And he said, "No. I've got no." And then an hour and a half later, he said, "I guess I'm doing this thing now." So, Gotham by Gaslight. So, if you haven't heard that story, I know we've got it in one of the interviews.
Yeah,
with
one
Brian
of the interviews
somewhere.
with Brian.
We always ask him about that. So it's a great story. And he, as I said, he was a concept artist on Pixar's Brave.
I was surprised to learn that.
That was fascinating. And then we have Danny John Jules. The cat.
From Red Dwarf.
Yep. He was actually in Blade 2 and Little Shop of Horrors. And before Red Dwarf, he was a dancer and singer and worked with David Bowie and Wham.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The guy does an amazing Little Richard.
Yeah. And then September 17th. Roddy McDowell, actor, most famous for Cornelius in Planet of the Apes films and TV. He was on the TV series.
He was. He played Galen.
And then did a ton of other stuff. He was an avid movie collector, had hundreds of movies on 16 millimeter film in his collection.
Go ahead.
Good.
I actually met him one year. He was appearing at some sort of a film festival con in San Francisco. And he was there with a couple of other Star Trek notables. And there was one guy coming up in gorilla outfit And it was really good looking too. He was playing the general, the gorilla general from Beneath the Planet of the Apes, which Roddy wasn't in. Roddy was not in that movie, people, and that's what's so funny about it, because he comes in and he introduces his character, and Roddy's kind of like, okay. He gave that, that kind of smile, like, okay, move along. But Roddy was not rude, to say the least. He was actually a very gracious man, but I thought it was hilarious that this guy would introduce himself as a character that Roddy had nothing to do with.
Well, maybe he didn't know. Who knows?
If you are putting on fan makeup,
I know.
If you're doing cosplay for a movie, you bloody well better know that the only Planet of the Apes movie Roddy wasn't in, and I'm talking the classic series only, was Beneath.
Yep. And he was actually good friends with Elizabeth Taylor. And one of the pieces of trivia said that he apparently made 0 enemies in Hollywood.
I believe
and
it.
Beyond.
I believe it.
Just didn't. Everybody that he knew still loves him, and he's like 20 years after his death now, and everybody speaks fondly of him. And then we have Anne Bancroft, actress, Mrs. Mel Brooks. Mm-hmm. She was in The Graduate and Great Expectations and Miracle Worker and Torch Song Trilogy.
Yes,
she met Mel on the set of a talk show.
Really?
Yes.
I always wondered how those two
Well, he met her on the set of the talk show, and he paid a woman that worked for the show to tell him where Anne was going to be having dinner so that he could accidentally bump into her and strike up a conversation.
That sounds very much like something Mel would do.
So that's how they met.
Indeed. They were very happily married for a long time,
yeah.
then until she passed away. And I remember reading interviews with Mel, and after she left, he was just heartbroken.
I'm sure. Then we have Facebook friend Michael Fett and Kenneth Rotter. September 18th, Dee Ramone. Was he the one that was?
I think he's the one we saw.
Is he the one was born?
There's a statue of him.
Yeah. Just right across from Toto.
Yeah, right in front. Yeah, the dog, not the band.
Well.
Anyway. And at the cemetery.
Hollywood
Forever. That's it, yeah.
Yep. And then, of course, I'm going to put every Ramone on here and say, is that the one?
Yeah, I know you are. Well, hey, I mean, every time we hear John Noble's name, we both say,
John
Noble! Not that John Noble. And that's an inside joke, people from Technorama.
Yeah, you have to listen to Technorama. June Foray, voiceover artist. She was Rocket J. Squirrel and Natasha Fatale.
Yeah.
Natasha.
I can't see her doing Natasha. That's the weird thing, but I can as Rocky.
Yep.
And of course, she's the little girl in The Grinch That Stole Christmas, the old animated cartoon.
Yep. And she many voices for Looney Tunes, especially Granny.
I didn't know she did Granny.
Tweety Bird is her pet.
Yeah.
So,
I know who Granny is. I just didn't realize that Granny was done by June Foray.
Yeah,
wow, because that's...
The thing is, Mel Blanc got all the credit for all the voices, even though she did a ton of voices for Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers.
Well, the thing is that I hear Granny, and we've heard June live because we were at a Disney event at El Capitan, and she was there... and I heard her speak, and I could immediately pick her out as being Rocky and the little girl whose name I can't remember now from Grinch. But I cannot hear... Cindy Lou Who, that's it, thank you. I could not hear her do any other voice because her voice, even in her natural speaking voice, is so specific that it fits right there. It's like when she's doing Rocky or Cindy, all she has to do is just talk.
Yep. And she was actually Lucifer in Cinderella.
What?
She did the sounds for Lucifer.
The meowing and all that?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep. And she was the voice of the Chatty Cathy doll from the 60s.
Oh my God, I haven't even thought about that. Over 40 years.
I know. And then we have Fred Willard, actor, crazy man.
Yeah.
Usually played slightly off-kilter characters that were
prone
to non-sequiturs.
He was so good at it.
He was so good at it.
And we recently lost him, too.
Yes, in May of this year. was an alumnus of Second City in Chicago.
Yeah, a lot of amazing talent came out of Second City.
Yeah, he would. Every time he would show up in anything,
you knew
it's like,
it was going to be
oh my God, over the top, craziness.
A bit wonky, yeah.
Yep. And then we have Aidan Gallagher, and who was 5 in Umbrella Academy.
Love this kid. He is so good.
He is so good. And he is the youngest Goodwill ambassador named by the UN ever at the age of 14.
He is
a couple of years ago, actually.
This kid is scarily intelligent. I mean, he is like brilliant to the point where like I don't even want to be within a mile of him for feeling insignificant.
Yeah. September 19th, James Lipton, the guy that inside the Actors Studio. He wrote a book called An Exaltation of Larks in 1968. And it's a book of phrases for groups of things, like a gaggle of geese and all of that. And I'm sure there's a little exposition on that. And he even adds some of his own. A score of bachelors. An unction of undertakers.
Cute.
A shrivel of critics.
Okay.
And it's been continuously in print since the first printing in 1968.
I'd love to know what he has to say about a gathering of gay men. What would that be?
Who knows?
Yeah. What? Porn? What?
Yeah, and he just died in March of this year.
Yeah.
At the age of 93.
He's another one. I mean, even though when we were introduced to him in pop culture, you could clearly see that he was on in years, but there was still something about him that felt eternal.
Yeah. His Inside the Actors Studio.
Oh, I love that.
Even though it's so formal, question, answer, question, answer, question, answer, he makes it more personable, and about
there was a
actors.
lot to learn. If you ever want to learn the art of interviewing, there are several people that you should really pay attention to. Howard Stern, I think, is clearly one of them. And then James Lipton is another one.
Yep. Then we have Brian Epstein, manager of the Beatles.
It's arguable. You could say that he kept the Beatles together.
Yep.
He had a really good sense of, I don't know what it was, but any kind of feuds that took place, he managed to totally diffuse.
Yep.
And it wasn't until after he committed suicide that things began to go awry within the band.
It's too bad. David McCallum, actor. Mm-hmm. His father was the first chair violinist in the London Symphony, and his mother was a cellist, and he studied oboe for
no kidding
many years.
Didn't know that. I just know him for his acting.
Yeah, Man from U.N.C.L.E., Ilya Kuryakin in the 64 to 68. Oh my God, I had such a crush on him.
I did too, and he came back and did a made-for-TV movie in the 80s.
Yep. I still say that they should have gotten Robert Vaughn and David McCallum to do a cameo sitting at the table at the end of the film across from the other guys.
Yeah, they should have been there.
But I think Robert Vaughn was so ill at that time.
It's
he died
very possible that they may not have been able to get him.
Yeah.
Which would have been, it really would have been tragic because you can't have one without the other.
Exactly.
You needed to have them both there.
Yep.
Otherwise, the gag doesn't work.
Exactly. And he was also Sapphire and Steel in NCIS.
Yeah.
Apparently, I think he's still on NCIS. He's 83 or something like that.
He looks good.
Yeah.
He looks really good. And, of course, did a stint in Babylon 5 in their first season.
Yep. And he was also considered as a potential doctor until Tom Baker was chosen for budgetary reasons.
No, okay, yeah. Well, Tom was, he'd done a lot of character parts leading up to that, but he wasn't a name. David McCallum was already a name.
Right. And then he was briefly considered in the 80s, but because he was living in the U.S. full-time.
No, forget it.
And then he was also considered to be the part of Dr. Judson in The Curse of Fenric.
Oh.
Anyway.
It would have been great to have had him in a Doctor Who episode.
It really would have. And then we have singer Cass Elliott.
Mama.
Amazing voice, Mama Cass. Wow. She after she broke up with the Mamas and the Papas broke up, she did 5 solo albums. She was
probably, in my opinion, she was the vocal talent of the group.
Yeah. She was really great. She died in a hotel in London.
Yeah.
Actually, it was a suite that was Henry Nilsson's.
Oh, really?
It was on loan from Henry Nielsen, and she had a heart attack, basically, and it probably from the years of doing too many drugs.
It's possible.
But actually, later on, Keith Moon died in the very same apartment at the very same age of 32.
Okay, we need to not have people stay there when they're 32 years old.
Exactly.
Because clearly there's a curse.
Yep. And then Adam West, Batman in Batman 66, as well as many other things. He was just one of a kind. He was, and I'm going to say this, and this is not to be casting aspersions, but he was a William Shatner type of actor.
Yeah.
In his delivery, it was very stilted, but in his own way.
Yeah.
And it was just, every character that he did that way, he was chosen to do that.
And I think of all the versions of Batman that have been on the screen between, both small and large, I'm going to go on a limb and say that Adam West was the most popular, and I base that on the panel we attended at Phoenix Comic-Con.
Oh, yeah.
Because you saw the influence that he had.
Ages.
I mean, I remember there was a guy who stood up and just said, you were my hero as I was growing up. And he couldn't be Batman, this man. So what did he do? He joined the military so that he could be a hero.
Yep.
Because it meant something to him. And as Adam West said, you look at the comic books, you look at the movies, and that Batman is the Dark Knight. And Adam says, I would like to think of my Batman as the Light Knight. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, he was.
Because
it was campy,
a lot of,
and it was, but
there was a lot of really good morality to it.
Exactly, there was. Yeah, and that was Klingon opera there. I was going to say there was a lot of morality episodes and moral choices that were made, and it was kind of like, and listen to us, kids.
Well, I remember,
without saying that.
I remember one episode where they were just, Batman and Robin were in the Batmobile. They were just going to go around the corner, and Robin does not put his seatbelt on. And Robin says, well, we're just going around the corner. And Batman gave him a lecture about the importance of wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah. They did a lot of good.
Yeah.
September 20th, Sophia Loren. Wow, she still is stunning.
Yeah,
and she was has been referred to as the Italian Marilyn Monroe. She had they had an affair with Cary Grant for many years.
Oh,
when in Hollywood, and that's why they were together. Anyway, that was an odd thing. I think that was set up, but anyway. That's neither here nor there.
Yes.
And then we have Dale Chihuly, glass artist from Tacoma. Some of his glass installations that we have seen, the one at the Bellagio,
looks like Cthulhu.
Oh my! Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Dale Cthulhu.
Yeah, Dale Cthulhu. I mean, every time I see that name, I want to call him. Oh,
I want to go see the Cthulhu glass installation.
Yeah, I want to see my glass dark overlords.
Yeah, at the Bellagio, and then they have a bunch out at the Desert Botanical Gardens. Yep. And then we have Facebook friends and filmmaker Rob Palmer and Facebook friend Joel Harper to round out September 20th. And that's it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad? Not me, that's for sure. How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama Podcast.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
And it's time for our feedback. And I will say that the links for these feedback comments will be featured in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. Starting with, and actually this is the only topic, Ben's Breakdown, Star Trek Lower Decks, 3-episode thoughts. Got a comment from our friend in Virginia, the Bionic Geek, Roy Roberts. Hey, Roy, it's great to hear from you. He says, I wanted to like it so much, but the comedy just misses most of the time. I gotta agree. Then got a comment. I love this. The next two comments came from fellow high school students of mine, and these two are married. First, from the wife, Karen Strong Black. She says, first episode was amusing, if not confusing, in that it didn't feel like Star Trek. Second episode was annoying. The female character is just wrong. Haven't watched the third yet, but if they're going to be disrespectful to Gene, they will definitely lose me. Really sad to see Star Trek's good name tarnished like this. Her husband, however, Donald, said, love it. I agree they need to slow the dialogue because they're throwing the jokes under the bus, but other than that, I think it's great. Well, Don, I can't agree with you on that one.
Oh, boy.
However, if you enjoyed it, I'm happy for you. And now, oh my God, that's right, I forgot. One more. Jeannie Koch. She said, I'm so glad you took one for the team, meaning me, and reviewed this, because all I could think was that it had been created solely because the Orville is so good that the Trek creators thought they'd have to get in on the darn funny stuff. And I think I was right. Thanks for your warning. I'll wait patiently for the next seasons of the Orville to avoid this dreck. And Jeannie, I think you are 100% right.
And now we have
I can't wait to hear this.
Really wonderful. This and Ben hasn't heard this.
I haven't heard any of this
now,
yet.
I have to say, this is from Pia Thrasher, and she had to leave 3 separate voicemails. I had to edit just a little bit because she kept getting cut off. She got cut off on the first one, and then she came back with 2 more.
Oh,
so
my.
There's a little bit of a repeat, but you'll understand. We love Pia. We love you,
Adore
Pia.
her.
Here we go.
Hi, guys. This is Pia. Oh, my God. I just realized that I'm calling way late, and I don't know if you actually hear the phone ring or if this is just automatically going to some kind of a...
Actually, I heard the phone ring.
Thing. I hope I didn't.
I did too. Yes.
Sorry. So, I heard your latest podcast, and I heard you talking smack about me.
Hey!
So, I'm going to have to call you back and leave a message. I love you, so I'm just messing with you. Oh, my God. Where to start? Well, first of all, on a different serious note, I'm very sorry to hear your mom's passing.
Thank you.
And I'm very sorry. That's tough. We are all getting into that age now where our parents are getting older, and I'm in the same boat. My parents are still alive, but I cannot imagine that's tough. So anyways, long story short, I'm sorry to hear that, and big hugs. Wish I could hug you. I'm going to pause just in case you want to edit things out because, well, since I'm talking, you might have to edit the shit out of it.
That's all right.
It's
So
okay.
anyway, I don't really have a comment, but I do have a question. So from what I could tell online today, I think today or tomorrow is the last day on the set or shoot day for Supernatural. I don't know if you ever watched Supernatural.
We started, but we need to pick it up.
15 seasons, and we're supposed to watch the last few episodes coming up here in a month or so. I'm not sure. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on Supernatural. What do you think about it? And will you miss it? Did you watch it? I hate to see it go. It was, in a way, it was its time, but
Oops.
Hi, guys. Yeah, again. So finally last night, I worked up the nerve to call and leave a message, and I talk, and then I get cut off. Story of my life. Anyways, I might have to make this several short messages. Again, I'll ask one more time. What do you think about supernatural endings? I'm sad about it. It's probably time, but I'm sad about it. What do you think? Okay, that was this one. And I'm going to call you back for another one so I don't get cut off again. Love you guys. Bye.
Wow.
Hi, guys. This is Tia again with a third message. I know I'm breaking all kinds of records today.
That's all
so
right.
I was wondering, you might want to need, I don't know if you need it, but maybe you'd like a new intro to your podcast. I mean, I'll record you one right now. You can take it or leave it or throw it away. And on top of it, it's going to be in German. So here goes nothing. Einen schönen guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Ich begrüße Sie recht herzlich zum Podcast der Two Gay Geeks. There you go, guys.
Yay.
Love you. Bye.
I felt like I was at a Disney attraction at Epcot.
Exactly.
Seriously, with that intro.
Yeah. Thank you, Pia. That is so wonderful.
Loved it.
We love you.
Yes. As far as Supernatural goes, we started to watch it, but we got sidetracked. We got like about 3 or 4 episodes into the first season. I know. Shame on us. And we really do need to pick it up. I had seen some later episodes. Some are very lighthearted and silly. Others are very dark and grim. But it is a show. I mean, it lasted so long for a reason.
Oh my gosh,
So maybe, I know we're kind of mainlining and binge watching several shows right now. Maybe after we finish one of those, maybe we should start on that one. It's all available.
It'll take us a year to get through the 15 seasons, though.
Maybe 2 or 3 if we just, even if we binge watch several episodes a night.
Yeah.
It's going to take us a couple of years just to get through the whole thing.
Yeah. If you want to leave a comment like Pia did, you can call our listener feedback line at 469-TG-GEEKS. That's 469-844-3357. Or you can leave a comment on our Facebook page, our Twitter, our Instagram, or even directly on our website at tggeeks.com on an episode or on an article that we have published. Please, whenever you do that, don't be nasty. Please play nice. If you are trans or are questioning your gender identity, and if you are in crisis or are feeling isolated and need someone to talk to, or you know of someone in a similar situation, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to translifeline.org to learn about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help. You are not alone. Did I play this stuff in the wrong order again? Probably.
No, you didn't.
Because
it's in the script.
Well, as everybody knows, we are huge supporters of independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers, or others. And since the convention scene and any public gatherings have kind of disappeared for this year, a lot of those people are kind of left out in the cold to market their stuff and their wares to all the folks. So please consider going to their Facebook pages, their web pages, their Etsy pages, or Twitter and Instagram. Take a look at this stuff. Commission their stuff if you really like their stuff. Talk to other people about them. Chat them up. Ask them questions. You know, they'll be glad to tell you all about their stuff. But please consider supporting independent creators. The Joshua Tree Feeding Program is a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry for the HIV and AIDS community in Maricopa and Pinal counties. They offer a place where clients can select from a wide assortment of nutritional foods to take home. JTFP is set up as a sword, as a store, as a sword, as a store, so the clients can pick and choose from the food that they prefer, so it empowers them to not waste any food.
And slay any dragons in the process.
And slay any dragons in the process. Please consider supporting the Joshua Tree Feeding Program with a single gift or a monthly recurring gift. You can do that by going to jtfp.org.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Well, we've only got one little thing we want to talk about, and this feels really weird that we've had 2 weeks in a row now where we just didn't get a lot of content out. Last week was because we were dealing with my mother's passing, and this week
we had some
technical issues.
Some technical issues
that were out of our control.
Exactly. GoDaddy had a big server snafu that was going on.
Lasted almost over a week.
It was over a week, and so we missed several days. We were lucky we got an episode published last week.
I'm lucky I was able to get my review in.
Yeah.
Because I was
just lots of other
it was so frustrating.
But we are back on track now, hopefully.
Yay.
So we'll just keep on keeping on.
And now we're going to cover
the short list.
Yeah, the short list, because we only ran like 4 or 5 things this past week at tggeeks.com, and we'll have the links for each of these items in the show notes for this episode number 291 at tggeeks.com, starting with Sunday, September 6th, Nerdy Chupacabras, number 12. On Monday the 7th, TG Geeks episode number 290. On Thursday the 10th, Ben's Breakdown, Out of Body, delivers fun and ghostly goodness. On Friday the 11th, Hamish Downey's 5 Questions with Cody Clark. And then on Saturday the 12th, Queer Virtual TV Network Reverie to feature the Q Agenda to kick off Hispanic Heritage Month. And that's what we ran on our website at tggeeks.com. Have to give a couple of shout-outs. First, to the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News for republishing our content from time to time. It is put up by the human Arkle, Brian Weber, good friend of the show. You can find the Post-Dispatch News by finding him on Twitter. Do that by looking for Arkle, at ARKLE. And he is also on YouTube with his Arkle Studios. Brian has a number of projects. His shameless cash grab series. I did that intentionally. His Rants versus Zombies series is my George Takei laugh. And his game videos of Trick and Treat, as well as Star Trek Online. You can find all of that by going to youtube.com/Arkle Studios. And we must also give some shout-outs to a couple of Facebook groups for allowing us to post our content. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. Big thanks to the moderators. I asked if I could share stuff there. They said, oh, please share away. Their URL is facebook.com/groups/Gay Geeks After Hours. And then to The Gay Geek. Why? For the same reason. You can find them by going to facebook.com/groups/The Gay Geek. And as always, we must give special thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah. And I also have to say, I just looked at Arkle's page, and Shameless Cash Grab Season 5 just started 2 weeks ago.
There you go.
And Babyface Morgan is the film that he's looking at. And he also has Arkle Tier Ranks, the Heroes of the Arrowverse. So go take a look at Arkle Studios on YouTube.
I think I wanted to actually watch that.
Yeah. And lastly, we can be found on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays, and listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links on the page of things that we talked about. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com. Or you can leave a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. I bid you peace. Please be kind to each other. Stay home, stay safe, stay sane.
Cheers.
Peace. What are we saying? I don't know. I got confused. Me.